My name is Claire Evans, and I just canceled a rooftop party I wasn't even invited to, even though I paid for every single detail, not out of revenge, not even out of anger, but because sometimes the only way to be seen is to stop showing up for people who only see your value in silence. I didn't plan to make a scene. I was just trying to give my sister something beautiful. A view she used to love. A celebration she used to dream about. A chance to feel held, even if we hadn't spoken in months. But when I stood on that rooftop, wind scraping at my coat collar, the skyline I paid for blinking back at me, I realized something. This wasn't an oversight. This was a decision. I wasn't on the guest list. But the payment? Still mine. The flowers? My choice. The dress? A gift she never acknowledged. And the girl standing beside her, laughing like she'd always belonged, was the same one who once got me blacklisted from an internship I earned. Now she had taken my name off the project. Again. Before I show you how I walked into a room designed to forget me, and rewrote the ending in my own name, drop your city in the comments. Subscribe. And tell me, have you ever been erased by someone you loved and still tried to give them something beautiful? Because this story isn't about revenge. It's about receipts. About reclaiming your space. About choosing dignity over performance. And walking out, not with a bang, but with proof. Wind brushed past my coat collar, tugging at a strand of hair I didn't bother fixing. The air still carried that lingering smell of spring rain mixed with hotel-grade lemon disinfectant. From here, the view was almost smug, like it knew things I didn't. And that's what burned. Because this was supposed to be my surprise, my gift. My way of showing Tessa that no matter what happened between us growing up, I was still her sister. Tessa used to beg me to plan her parties. She once FaceTimed me from a candle aisle in college, crying because the peonies she ordered were out of stock. Now? She didn't even text me back. I walked toward the edge of the deck, heels clicking softly against the tile. The rooftop was still bare. Just outlines on the floor marking where the bar, DJ booth, and seating would go. I had sent in the deposit 3 weeks ago, and the hotel manager confirmed my name was on the reservation. Mine, Claire Harper. I glanced at the clipboard in my hand, double-checking the invoice. I'd chosen the platinum package, open bar, skyline view, private elevator access. Tessa loved rooftop views. Or at least she used to when we were still talking like normal people. I pulled out my phone and typed another text to her. Me. Hey, just confirming again. March 25th, still good for the party? Venue locked in. Let me know if you want to walk through. The bubbles didn't even blink, just static silence. I was about to tuck my phone away when I heard voices, too familiar to mistake. I turned toward the glass elevator as the doors slid open. There she was. Tessa stepped onto the rooftop in full spring brunch mode. White sunglasses, midi dress, soft curls bouncing as she walked. Right beside her was Lena Crawford. My stomach dropped a fraction. Lena tilted her head slightly when she saw me. There was that look again, like I was an email she didn't feel like reading. She whispered something to Tessa, who laughed. Then neither of them acknowledged me. Not a wave, not even a nod. They walked straight toward the other side of the deck, pointed at the pergola corner, then left like I didn't exist. I stood frozen, the wind snatching at the folder in my hands. I barely caught it before it flew off the ledge. Lena. God, of course it was Lena. Back in college, Lena had this talent for manipulation so subtle you'd miss it until the opportunity was already gone. She once convinced our TAI plagiarized a group project just to knock me off the shortlist for an internship. When I found out she had taken the slot herself, she called it networking. I hadn't seen her in years. Now she was walking next to my sister like they went to matching SoulCycle classes. Still shaken, I tried texting Tessa again. Nothing. The pit in my stomach deepened when I saw Brandon, Tessa's boyfriend, step out from the elevator next. His eyes scanned the rooftop quickly, then landed on me. For a brief second, something flickered there. Guilt, recognition, confusion. Maybe all three. His brows knitted slightly like he wanted to say something. But then Lena waved him over and he turned. I pulled open the hotel app to check the reservation details again, more out of anxiety than doubt. Everything matched. Name, time, payment confirmation. Until I checked the email tied to the account. Subject: Request to transfer event management authorization. The message was short, brutally clean. Per client request, primary coordination contact has been updated to Lena Crawford. Original coordinator, Claire Harper, remains as financial point of contact. Thank you. I blinked at the screen, reading it again and again. The digital ink might as well have screamed. I was funding a party I wasn't even welcome at, and I had the receipt to prove it. The invitation list dropped. I wasn't on it. But the deposit? Still very much mine. It hit around 11:30 p.m., just as the takeout container finally gave up its structural integrity on my lap. My phone pinged with a group message photo. A wide, pastel-filtered banner from someone I didn't know well enough to still follow. Tessa's birthday bash. So excited, heart RSVP link below. I clicked. I scanned. I didn't find my name. No Claire Harper +1. No original organizer footnote. Just a carousel of glammed-up bios for the event team, with Lena's smirking headshot right at the top. Event host. Creative director. Lead contact. All the titles I used to carry with pride, with labor, reduced to fluff beneath her curated name. I sat very still. The kind of still that only happens when you're too furious to trust your own hands. The TV was still humming, though I couldn't remember what I'd been watching. Probably something in the background to drown out the silence. Lena once told me when I'd called her out for using my portfolio to land a summer internship, "You're not good at playing nice. That's why no one wants you around." I'd brushed it off at the time. Now, it echoed like the scrape of a key across a locked door. The couch creaked as I stood and crossed to my desk. The event planning dashboard was still open in a browser tab. I stared at it. My card, my name, still listed under billing owner. Of course they hadn't changed that. I didn't hesitate this time. Fingers tapping fast, I navigated the cancellation portal. One click. Confirmation. Service revoked. Next, the payment. I opened my bank app and triggered the dispute. I selected unauthorized continuation of services after consent withdrawal. They'd have a process. And Lena? She could explain it to a committee. The only thing worse than being excluded was paying for it. I leaned back, waiting for the silence to morph into something satisfying. It didn't. Just heavier. My phone buzzed again. Not the group chat this time. "Brandon, I want to see you." I stared at the message, thumb hovering. What did he think this was? A side channel? An escape hatch? Behind my eyes, a memory surfaced, abrupt and inconvenient. My therapist, soft-voiced and surgical as always, had once asked, "If you stop giving, who are you to them?" At the time, I didn't answer. I wasn't ready. Now I was starting to wonder if she already knew. I didn't text Brandon back. Instead, I opened my email to info@morrisonrooftopevents.com. Subject: Withdrawal of funding, March 25th. Event effective immediately. I withdraw all financial support for this event. Please cancel all arrangements connected to my billing account. This event no longer represents my intent. Short, clean, no room for confusion. My phone rang just as I hit send. Mom flashed across the screen. I debated letting it go to voicemail. Picked up anyway. "Claire, honey, quick question. Did you see the dress Tessa was thinking about for her party?" She mentioned two options, one blush, one navy. My mouth went dry. "No, Mom, I haven't." Pause. "Oh, I just thought, she said you were helping, but I guess Lena—" "Good night, Mom." I hung up. I tossed the phone on the couch and let my head fall back. exhaling sharp through my nose, the kind of breath that felt like detox. One by one, I started pulling down the sticky notes from my bulletin board, all the color-coded tasks I had lined up for this party, the catering call, the florals, the timeline spreadsheet, all gone. Gone and irrelevant. I wasn't their fixer anymore. Somewhere between note 7 and 8, I realized something startling. I didn't feel guilty, not even a flicker. I felt light. Keeping up the image of the perfect sister is a form of avoidance. Her words again. My therapist. She had tried to crack the shell gently. It finally shattered tonight. Another ping. I didn't want to check, but I did. Tessa had posted a photo. She and Lena, arms looped, laughing over cupcakes. Caption? Couldn't have done this without you. My name? Not even a footnote. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity and a record of every lie they told. The rain was soft, rhythmic, just enough to dust the outside of the cafe windows and blur the street lamps into halos. I sat in the far corner, my laptop open, a flash drive beside it like an unlit match. The scent of espresso lingered, warm but slightly burnt, and I welcomed it. At least it was real. Brandon slid into the booth across from me, a few drops still clinging to the shoulders of his hoodie. He looked tired in a way that wasn't just physical. Claire? He greeted, voice low but steady. You sure about this? I nodded and pushed the flash drive across the table. Everything's there. Invoices, contract amendments, the date Lena requested I hand over the coordinator role, and the payment history that still had my name attached to it. He didn't touch it right away, just stared. I watched his throat shift as he swallowed. She said, his voice trailed off, then firmer. Lena told Tessa you tried to sabotage her career, said you called her employer and got her fired back in 2020. I didn't react. I'd prepared for this moment. Instead, I reached for my bag, pulled out a printout, and placed it in front of him. It was a scanned HR letter, signed and time-stamped. The reason for Lena's dismissal? Unethical behavior. Specifically, taking credit for another intern's work. My name? Never mentioned in the document. Lena lied, I said simply, and Tessa believed her. Brandon studied the page for a long moment, brows furrowed so deep I thought he might tear the paper in two just by looking at it. She said she was protecting Tessa, he murmured, that your anger would destroy everything. I wasn't angry, I said, until they erased me. I opened the PDF on my laptop, every transaction logged, emails where I confirmed details, the floral budget approval, the final payment for the rooftop deposit. Lena had responded to most of them, sometimes even from her personal Gmail. I scrolled to the last page. A photo. Tessa, smiling under string lights, wearing the blush satin gown I bought her 6 weeks ago. The tag still visible under the arm. It hadn't even been altered. She's wearing the dress I gave her, I said, voice almost breaking. But I held it. She didn't even tell me she liked it. Brandon leaned forward, his elbows planted on the table like he needed to physically hold himself in place. Claire, this is a lot. I'm not asking you to choose sides, I said, but you're the only one in that house who still sees what's actually happening. He didn't deny it. Then, slowly, he reached for the flash drive. I'll talk to Tessa, he said, but you should be the one to send this. I know. I opened my email client. 2. Mom, Dad, Tessa, Brandon. Subject for transparency, I'm not looking for apologies, but I am tired of pretending this never happened. Attached is a record of all financial, contractual, and communication details related to the March 25th event. I had no part in its planning after May 9th, though I remained financially responsible until June 9th. This isn't an attack. It's just the truth. I added the PDF, took one last breath, hit send. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed on the table. Tessa, we need to talk. Tomorrow? I stared at the screen, the rain tapping louder now against the windows. Tomorrow, I didn't crash the party. I just walked into a room I paid for, right on time. The elevator doors opened to a soft cascade of music, laughter, and the smell of overpriced champagne. Light spilled out onto the rooftop, filtered through strands of fairy lights woven between glass railings. The skyline shimmered behind them, proud and distant. I stepped into the scene wearing the silver gray dress I had once folded carefully into tissue paper, planning to gift it to Tessa. The slit fell perfectly at the thigh. The neckline, clean, classic. It wasn't for attention. It was for memory. No one turned. No one said hello. So I smiled. My heels clicked gently across the polished floor as I made my way to the bar. The bartender, a man with a half knot and nerves in his jawline, blinked twice before asking, "Would you like to start a tab?" I didn't bother with names. Sauvignon Blanc, cold. Behind me, laughter rose, sharp and familiar. I turned just enough to see Tessa. The lights caught her in fragments. Her profile, her laugh, her earrings catching in her curls. She looked beautiful. But she was laughing with Lena. Lena, whose eyes scanned the room the moment she sensed something had shifted in the atmosphere. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. She blinked. Once, then leaned in toward Tessa and said something. Tessa looked. Our eyes met. That was the only moment of silence I got all evening. From across the room, Brandon appeared like a shadow parting from the wall. His hands were in his pockets, his suit slightly wrinkled, like he hadn't been sure he'd stay long. But he was here, and he walked straight toward me. "Claire," he said, voice low, eyes steady. "Nice party," I said, tilting my glass toward the skyline. "I've always liked this view." He looked around. The pink peonies I'd approved, the candles and glass cylinders, the engraved menus with the cursive font I chose 2 months ago. It was all still mine, just without my name. "This whole party," he said, stepping closer, "is a mirror." And they finally see themselves. I didn't respond, not with words. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a single folder. Cream cardstock, sealed in wax. I walked past him, slow and silent, weaving through the crowd as if I belonged, which I did. At the reception table, I placed the folder upright against the guest book. Then I flipped the cover open to the first page. Claire Evans, event holder, authorization withdrawn. The letters were clean, bold, and impossible to misinterpret. Behind me, there was the faint sound of a gasp. Mom approached first. "Claire, what is this?" I didn't answer. I just turned, met her eyes, and then shifted my gaze to Lena, who stood frozen, one hand hovering near her wineglass. She'd gone pale in a way makeup couldn't fix. Brandon stood beside me now, silent. And then Tessa appeared. She stepped forward, her dress swaying slightly, her earrings still catching the light. But her eyes had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by something more fragile. She leaned in, just close enough for only me to hear. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" "Tell me everything," Tessa whispered. For the first time, she sounded like the little sister I used to protect. We sat at opposite ends of the narrow balcony behind the rooftop bar, the city lights flickering just below eye level. Between us, 2 half-filled glasses of white wine, condensation clinging to the stems. The noise of the party had faded into something muted. Clinks of forks, laughter like echoes, the occasional swell of music that couldn't touch us out here. Tessa hadn't looked directly at me since we sat down. Her voice was barely above the wind. "Was any of it true?" I didn't answer right away. I tilted my glass in small circles, letting the wine catch the light. Then I set it down. "You mean what Lena told you?" A pause, then a slow, reluctant nod. I leaned back in my chair, hands folded in my lap. "You remember sophomore year? When I stopped applying for internships after fall?" Her brows furrowed slightly. "Yeah." You said something about being overwhelmed. I lied. I turned my head to face her. Lena told the department chair that I plagiarized her capstone summary. Said I accessed her drive without permission. She had screenshots, doctored timestamps. It almost cost me my scholarship. Tessa's lips parted like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. So I kept going. It took a month. I dug through every revision log, found the metadata, proved I wrote mine first. She was asked to leave her internship after that. No formal charges, no academic penalty, just a discreet transition. She got away with it. Tessa looked down at her wine. She said you had it out for her. I shook my head gently. She said that so often it became her safety net. And the more she said it, the less I defended myself. There was a long silence. Somewhere inside, someone dropped a glass, and the crack of it rang through the distance. Neither of us flinched. I saw the email. Tessa finally said, and the payment records. I don't want to believe Lena, Claire. But I didn't have the courage to ask you. Not until now. I breathed in slowly, let it fill the hollow in my chest that had ached since March. I'm not angry, I said, and meant it. I'm just done proving I belong. She flinched. Not physically, but in that way you can feel when someone's heart contracts in real time. I kept waiting, I said, voice calm, for someone, anyone, to notice that I disappeared, that I was being erased. But you all just moved the celebration forward like nothing happened, like I'd never been there. Tessa's eyes glistened, and then, without warning, she broke. Her shoulders folded inward, quiet sobs bubbling from a place she clearly didn't expect. Her hand flew to her mouth, and the wine glass trembled in her other hand. I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't reach across the table like I might have once. I let her feel it. When she finally caught her breath, she wiped her cheeks with the cuff of her dress. I've been selfish, she said, voice cracking. And weak. I let her speak for me because it was easier, because I didn't want to lose her. I said nothing. I didn't need to. But I don't want to lose you either. Her eyes finally locked with mine. Give me a second chance. Let me show you I can be better. The wind picked up again, and the city stretched below us. Still glowing, still moving. I looked at her, at the face I'd once bandaged after she fell from her bike, at the girl who used to sneak into my room during thunderstorms. And I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. I used to buy the gifts, plan the parties, hold the family together. This time I just watched. The apartment was quiet in that sacred way it only ever was at night. A pool of warm light from the overhead pendant lamp spread across the small dining table, where dinner, lemon risotto, and a glass of Pinot was already half finished. Outside, Ravenswood was soft with early summer air. I didn't play music. I didn't light candles. I just sat, fork in one hand, the other tracing the corner of a box that had arrived this morning. It was small, white. No return address, but the handwriting on the label was unmistakable. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear the tape. Inside was a necklace, thin silver chain, 2 interlocking circles, one slightly smaller than the other. No gemstones. No brand. Just something quiet, intentional. There was a folded note tucked beneath it. I'm not asking you to fix us again. Just, maybe we can start over? Tessa. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. From the corner of the room, I pulled open a drawer. The same drawer where the original gift still sat. Untouched, unopened. A silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a falling star. I'd chosen it because Tessa once said she liked things that looked like wishes mid-flight. I took both necklaces and laid them gently on the table. They couldn't have been more different. One full of meaning I'd assigned, the other full of meaning she'd offered. And yet, both now shared the same space. My phone lit up with a message. Brandon, you were brilliant. I smiled faintly, then locked the screen. No reply needed. Next to the box was a pale blue card I'd almost forgotten I'd received earlier in the day. No envelope, just slipped into the mailbox. Thanks for keeping things calm. I see it now. Mom. That was all. No love, Mom. No grand gestures. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like honesty. I walked to the bookshelf where an old photo frame still held a picture from years ago. Tessa and I at the lake house, sand in our hair, arms around each other, sunburned and happy. I opened the back, slid the photo out, and replaced it. The new one showed us from last week, taken by someone else while we were mid-conversation on the balcony. It wasn't posed. We weren't even smiling. But our faces, tilted toward one another, eyes steady, said more than any camera could catch. I set the frame back down. Then I sat. No texts, no emails, no lists to revise, no one needing me to handle things. Just the city humming low outside and the cool metal of two necklaces resting side by side under the light. I didn't need to be the guest of honor. Just finally, seen. I used to believe I had to be the one who held it all together. Keeping the peace, organizing the plans, checking in on everyone else's emotions while quietly tucking away my own. Every cold glance, every forgotten thank you, every text left unanswered. I swallowed them whole. I thought if I gave just a little more, tolerated just a little longer, eventually someone would see me. But this year's party, that was the breaking point. I had made the plans, paid the bills, stepped aside like always. But this time, they didn't even want me in the wings. They erased me before I could offer. Strangely, that hurt less than I expected. Maybe because I'd grown so used to being invisible that being cut off completely felt freeing. There was no illusion left, no excuse to keep protecting them from the truth. Lena didn't surprise me. She never really forgave me, not for anything I did, but for simply being in the way. She always needed someone to blame, and I was easy. But what left a bruise was Tessa's eyes. Not when she looked at me during the party, but when she didn't. When she chose to look away. Eyes that once gave me comfort now sought safety in someone else's story instead of asking for mine. I didn't show up to reclaim my role. I showed up to prove, to myself, that I could. That I could walk into a room I paid for, uninvited and not flinch. That was all I needed. And somehow, my silence made more noise than any speech ever could. I didn't call anyone out. I didn't make a scene. I simply placed the receipts, time-stamped, documented, signed, and walked away with the kind of composure they use to mistake for weakness. I wasn't trying to win. I just refused to be erased from a story I helped build. Tessa said, "Give me a second chance. Let me show you I can be better." I nodded. Not for her. For me. For the older sister who was too tired of proving her worth. For the girl who once believed that silence was noble. Not anymore. I won't stay quiet if silence means injustice keeps its grip. When I replaced the photo in the frame. When I set down the necklace I never gave beside the one she finally sent. I wasn't discarding the past. I was rewriting it, on my own terms. I'm no longer the one who holds the family together. I'm no longer the one behind the scenes. I'm the one living her life. On her feet. With a voice. With boundaries. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. No alarms, no checking messages. No worrying if someone would be upset I forgot a birthday, a cake order, or a peacekeeping lie. They had forgotten me. And for a while, I forgot myself too. But not anymore. Some people have to lose everything. Titles, roles, illusions, just to find who they truly are. Claire Evans didn't reclaim her place in the family. She reclaimed herself. And in a world that rewards performance and punishes honesty, sometimes quiet truth becomes the loudest revolution. Justice doesn't always arrive with courtroom drama or grand takedowns. Sometimes it looks like an email with receipts. A calm stare in a room full of turned heads. A woman no longer asking permission to stand where she already belongs. No one has to scream to be heard. No one needs to play the perfect daughter, sister, or peacemaker just to be allowed in. When kindness is expected without gratitude, then walking away becomes a declaration. Claire didn't point fingers, but her presence, with facts in hand and calm in her voice, forced every lie to blink first. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but once it lands, its resonance cannot be ignored. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is stop waiting to be invited. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. If you've ever given more than you had, if you've ever planned the party, paid the bill, set the table, only to realize you weren't even counted as a guest, then maybe, like me, you learned the hardest lesson of all, that love without recognition becomes labor, and silence when expected becomes a form of control. I didn't cancel the party to cause pain. I canceled it to reclaim peace. This isn't a story about confrontation. It's about clarity. It's about realizing that sometimes walking away quietly, with evidence, with dignity, is louder than any accusation could ever be. When they cut my name from the list, I didn't chase. When they replaced me in the credits, I didn't beg. I simply placed the receipts and walked forward. No screaming, no ultimatums, just truth. In print, in email, in every overlooked invoice and forgotten thank you. And you know what happened? They finally turned around. Not because I demanded it, but because silence, when paired with proof, becomes undeniable. If this story touched something in you, drop a comment. Tell me, have you ever been erased by the very people you worked hardest to protect? Share this video with someone who's rebuilding, with someone who's done being the family glue, with someone who's finally ready to say, I deserve to be seen. And if you've been here before, if you've been part of this space where stories become mirrors, thank you. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Thank you for lending your time, your heart, and your attention to stories that don't always scream, but still deserve to be heard. This channel isn't just about family drama. It's about quiet justice. It's about voices like yours. Strong, honest, and no longer apologizing for taking up space. So stay, subscribe if you haven't, and come back when you're ready for another truth. Because here in this space, we don't wait to be invited. We build our own rooftop, and we toast to the ones who finally saw us standing. Thank you. Truly.